Powerful Content Podcast, your go-to source for content creation, strategy, and business inspiration. I'm your host, Mel Daniels, content strategist, coach, and speaker, empowering women across the globe to grow their business with powerful content that connects, nurtures, and converts. So if you're ready to create standout content that gets you noticed and remembered, or build an aligned audience who love you and are ready to buy from you, you're in the right place. I believe that content has the power to connect us all. It's up to you how you use it. Listen in for genuine and insightful chats with guests, as well as practical tools and strategies from me. It's so lovely to have you here. Let's dive into the show. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to episode 62 of the Powerful Content Podcast. I want to take a moment to say thank you to you, my beautiful listener. I truly appreciate you and the fact that you've taken time out of your day today to tune into this episode, and I'm just truly grateful that you're here, so thank you. And before I get into today's episode, I want to let you know that if you're listening to this in real time, that's May 2023, then doors will be opening to the Content Effect in just a few short weeks. It's very exciting. And if you're listening in the future, don't worry, you can still put your name on the wait list so you're the first to know when they open again. So if you don't already know, the Content Effect is my membership where I help you become a powerful content creator. It's not about becoming a content creating machine and being in #all the places, but it's a safe space for you to become more energetically aligned to create content that really gets you noticed and remembered. So make sure that you pop on down to the show notes to get all the goss about how to join us on the inside. Now, let's talk about consistency. I know so many people will eye roll at that word because it does feel hard and heavy. But today I'm going to talk about why consistency may not have worked for you in the past when it comes to your content. Now, recently I did a bucket load of interviews with women who are just like you, and the biggest challenge that came through loud and clear is that they wished that they could be more consistent with their content. And I see this all the time, I really do. Women showing up like absolute content creating queens in all the places with a great message, and then crickets, absolutely nothing. You don't hear from them for absolutely ages, and eventually you forget about them until they show up again with gusto, and so the roller coaster ride continues. But before I talk about why this happens, why you end up on this roller coaster ride of content creation and consistency, or even how to fix it, I think it's really important to address why it even matters. Why does it matter that we are consistent with our content? Well, quite simply, sales in our business relies on our visibility, and visibility relies on consistency. So in order to get this thing, the one reason that we're in business, the sales and the clients, we need to show up, as most people say, so people can connect with us and then understand exactly what we're all about. And we can be more powerful about how we're visible by understanding the strategy behind content. And yes, there is a strategy. Often people think content consistency means creating more, and when you create more, it becomes less powerful. But content is the way that we take our ideal client from not knowing anything about us all the way to becoming a paying, raving fan. So we're moving them through this journey with us solely based on our content. It's how they first connect with us. It's then how they get onto our email list. It's then how we nurture them and how they finally understand that purchasing from us will help solve their problem. So if you're my ideal client in, say, the beginning of that client journey, in the connect phase of the client journey, and you see me on Instagram and you think, wow, yes, I really love Mel's message and the way she talks about content, and I'm there and I'm posting in stories and posting in my feed and doing reels, and you're getting to know me, and then I disappear. I disappear for a few weeks. What do you think is going to happen? It's going to be really hard for you to pick up where you left off with me So instead of being ready to perhaps join my email list, take that next step with me, our relationship has gone back to the beginning again because you've got to get used to me and trust me all over again. So the question becomes, if I know that visibility gets me clients and consistency is the key to visibility, how can I support myself to be consistent? So let's talk about why inconsistency happens, or why you perhaps set out with that intention that you really want to create content consistently, but something happens and you fall off the bandwagon. Well, the first thing I think is really obvious is burnout and a lack of support around what you're doing. So when we are unaware of our time, our energy, and resources, then we overuse them. We try to do too much, and then we end up with little or no love for creating content, let alone being consistent with it. And that's not what I want for you. When we acknowledge and accept that we have boundaries around that time, energy, and resources, and that my time, energy, and resources is very different to that I had 5 years ago, that I had 10 years ago. And it's very different to your time, energy, and resources as well. As soon as we can acknowledge and accept that, then we can start creating content within the boundaries of it. And when we create content within the boundaries of our time, energy, and resources, then amazing things can happen. Now, the next thing that I think is a really strong driver of creating content inconsistently is not understanding how you like to create content. Just like your time, your energy, and resources, you also need to be aware of your superpower. If you haven't done my quiz yet to find out your content creator archetype, head on down to the show notes and take it and see which of the archetypes that you come out as. And really acknowledge that and lean into your superpower. As an example, the free spirits love to create in the moment. So if I turn around and tell you that to be consistent, you have to schedule a month's worth of social media, that is going to totally freak you out. You'll never ever be consistent following someone else's shoulds. You need to understand how you like to create content, and then that's going to be the driver of your consistency. And we'll talk a bit about this a bit later. The next thing is perfectionism or self-doubt. This is a big one. I know, because I hear it from you all the time. How many times have you sat on a blog finessing the words? Or how many times have you failed to hit post on that social media post just because it wasn't quite right? When we doubt ourselves or strive for that perfection, it really stops us from sharing content that our ideal client needs to hear from us. And they need to hear from you, my friend. They really do. The next main driver of content inconsistency is around time management and really not making it a priority. Hopefully, now you understand that taking our ideal client through that client journey is such a powerful and purposeful way to create content and put it out into the world and make those sales that we get from being more visible. Hopefully now you will make it a priority. Because when you say, I'll do it later, it often ends up as not doing it at all, does it? I know that happens to me. I know that many of my community would much rather create another 10 templates in Canva than get ahead with their blogs or podcasts. Wasting time on the unimportant or the non-revenue generating activities not only slows our growth, it really stops us from being powerful, it stops us from being purposeful, and it definitely stops us from being strategic with our content. Okay, so now we know all of this, how can we fix it? How can we be truly aware of who we are, our time, energy, and resources, make sure that we're not being a perfectionist, and prioritize our content creation? I know that many people think that there is no way, absolutely no way, that they could be consistent, as perhaps they like to create when they're in the flow or they just don't have time. But the best way to be consistent is creating that framework that suits your personality and your style, but always includes these 4 elements. The first is being prepared. The second is having a plan. The third is producing the goddamn content. And the fourth thing is a process. So being prepared is knowing all the things that you could talk about. And I know this sounds a bit silly because you are the expert and you know what you know. But we often don't have all of those things written down. And when it stays in our head, then it makes it really, really difficult for us to jump in and create when we need to or when we're feeling in the flow. So I really encourage you to get all of those ideas out of your head and onto paper. The second thing is having a plan. Now, please do not eye roll me here because a plan is probably the best way of staying on track and becoming more consistent. So this is taking all of those ideas that you've come up with and turning them into powerful content that takes your ideal client on a journey and helps you achieve the goals that you want to achieve as well. It's so important that we really put aside the time and invest the time into making a plan for our content. Now, we do this inside of the Content Effect. We do 90-day plans, so you know exactly what you're working towards in that 90 days and the content that you need to create and the topics that you need to cover in order for your ideal client to go on that journey with you. It's an absolute game changer. Now, the third P was produce. So that's actually creating the content. So that's often all about getting out of our own way and making it happen. So if we're one of those free spirits where we love to create in the flow and we know that, let's think about ways that we can put ourselves into that state of flow so that we can create content more often. And the last thing is process, which is all about knowing all the moving parts, which not only makes sure that you don't miss a step, but it also makes outsourcing an absolute breeze as well. So those four things again is about being prepared, having a plan, producing the content, and then knowing what the process is around it. So if you've done the quiz, hopefully you have, and you know what your content creator archetype is, then I'm going to give you a few tips here. If you're a free spirit, so this is a person that likes to create in the flow, becoming more consistent may look like this. It may look like scheduling just a few posts on social media each week. So maybe one, maybe two, but leaving that space and that freedom to create when you're in the flow and share that content when you're in the flow. And you know what? If it's one of those weeks where you're not really feeling it, when you don't feel like you're in the flow, at least you know that there are just a few posts going out on social media each week. So that's one way. Another way might be writing and creating that content when you're in the flow, but actually saving it for another time. I see so many of the free spirits create this amazing content, but then just keep publishing it and publishing it and publishing it. Perhaps you can wait a few days, perhaps you can wait a week, and perhaps you could even break down those pieces of content. And this is the last piece of advice for my free spirits, is to reimagine past pieces of content. Because you usually love writing a lot, there's plenty of it to reuse. Break down a previous post that may have been quite long. Break it into 2 or 3 other posts. There's lots of ways for you to reimagine your previous content to become more consistent and more visible. So if you're a planner like me, this may look like making a regular time in your diary to batch create content. It might look like scheduling a month's worth of social media at a time. And it might even look like making a time in your diary to go live each week. Lots of different ways that a planner can be consistent. Now, if you're an observer, so this is someone who likes to sit back and to watch others and see what works before they jump in and do anything, this may look like being really specific around creating processes around the creation and publication of your content so that someone else can hit publish for you, because often you don't. You might think about taking baby steps towards scheduling some of your social media. So once again, it might be just that 1 or 2 posts per week. And an observer may like to make time to create core content. So that's your blog, your podcast, or video. Create that type of content regularly Start with just one a month and then go from there. See how that feels. And lastly, if you're a collector, and this is the person that, flits from one strategy to another strategy and gets really distracted by that shiny object. If you're a collector, then perhaps consistency may be about creating one source of truth for inspiration for your own content. Because you consume so much content from everyone else, perhaps you might like to just create that one document where you can place all the inspiration for your own content, not to copy, just to inspire. You might like to create a really high level plan so that you don't go off track and down the rabbit hole all the time. And lastly, you may like to limit your own personal scroll time. This will help you avoid that shiny object and really stay in your own lane when it comes to creating content. So hopefully you now understand that consistency is not about copying someone else's tactics. It's not about using them. It's about letting go of the shoulds and really supporting yourself in a way that complements your time, your energy and resources, as well as the type of content creator that you are. Because we are all uniquely different. And isn't that wonderful? If you're ready to really embrace consistency with your content, then make sure that you've downloaded my newest free resource, which dives into those 4 foundational pieces of the framework, the 4 Ps, that you need to be able to show up consistently in a way that feels good and feels easy for you. And don't forget, like I said at the beginning of this episode, that doors will be opening to the Content Effect very soon. This is the place to learn about content and be more supported to create a sustainable content strategy that works for you and draws in your ideal client with a purpose and message that matters. There is absolutely no shoulds in here. Talk soon.
Thanks so much for listening. That's it for another week. To get more powerful content in your life, make sure you're following along on socials. My handle is @meldbusiness. And just in case you're wondering, the groovy music for this podcast was created by Just Here on SoundCloud. I'd also be super grateful if you took a moment to rate and review this podcast so more amazing women like you can experience the power of content. And if you're like, hell Mel, stop talking, I'm ready to work with you now, here's how we can work some powerful content magic together. Firstly, come and join the Content Effect, my membership inspiring women with service-based businesses to ditch the content chaos and start creating stand-out content that gets you noticed and makes sales. You can join us by using the link in the show notes or just Google the Content Effect. The second way we can work together is via my one-on-one packages. We can create a sustainable content strategy or start to build out your client journey. It's up to you. Pop on over to meldbusinessservices.com.au/services to find out more. Until next time, have a beautiful week and embrace the power of your content.